All right, Mr. Juan Laporte, thank you very much for coming out to theboxingbar.com and welcome, my friend.
Well, thank you.
And Juan, man, I mean, of all sports, baseball, basketball, football, whatever, why boxing? Why boxing of all sports did you choose, to get into this life and get into a sport like that?
Well, why most of the Mexicans choose boxing?
You got me there, man. You got me there.
Because your size?
Was it that Latin blood that just gets in you, that boils up, and you just need that tough competition? What is it?
Well, I mean, like everything else, each individual is gifted with something, and I guess my gift was the boxing, and that's what I stuck to. I stuck to that because basketball I was too short. For baseball, I was too angry. So I chose boxing. I said, this is the sport where I'm really, comfortable at.
And how was it that you got into the sport? I mean, did you walk into the gym one day? Did someone drag you over there? How did that happen? How did you get into the gym for that first time?
Well, I mean, I used to, when I was a young boy, I used to fight in the streets a lot. And at the time, around that area, there was a boxer. His name was Carlos Espada. And, he used to see me fighting in the streets, always invited me, telling me, come to the gym where you can make something out of yourself instead of fighting in the streets. And, one day I took him up for it, and I said, I'll fight anybody you want. And he took me, and that's the way I started.
Before we go further, for anybody that doesn't know where you came from and where you're from and all that, where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in Puerto Rico. There's a town named Guayama, Puerto Rico, and I was born there in the year 1959. And then in the 1966, I came to, United States, stood a little while, and then I went back, and I came back on 68, and I never returned. I've been here ever since, back and forth.
Guayama, I mean, we've heard of that place and a lot of boxers that come from there before and after you. But let's go ahead and look into your past anyways. And what was it like the first time you walked into a gym? I mean, how did that happen? And, what did you think of that first experience? What made you go back?
Well, what happened was I didn't even go to a gym before my first fight. I just went, from the street right into a ring. And then, I see that I needed work, and we started going to a gym, and I just got used to seeing, the people, and made a lot of friends in the gym, and seeing a lot of important fighters, coming in the gym, like Emile, Griffith, and all of that. So I like the atmosphere of the gym, and I stuck with the boxing. I thought it was the best thing I did for my life was that. No doubt about that.
I was raised with Julio, Cesar, Chavez, watching that since I was a little kid and having barbecues and watching all his fights. Did you guys have that type of stuff also growing up? I mean, did you guys, you and your family, did you guys watch your, great Puerto Rican fighters as well?
Over here was a whole different thing. Over here, the only thing we used to watch is Muhammad Ali and that, Joe Frazier and all that stuff. That was the only important things at my time that I was interested in whenever they came up, because really at one time I didn't even like boxing. I just, I thought it was very hard to do, and I said, wow, damn, they got to do all of that. I was lazy.
What about guys like Carlos Ortiz? Do you remember guys like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Carlos Ortiz and Jose Torres, all these, Roberto Duran, all these guys, yeah, I met once I started going into the boxing business. When I was watching, there was a tournament that Don King had. It was Budweiser on TV, and I saw Ruben Castillo fighting some dude there. Ruben Castillo was whipping the shit out of I don't know who it was. I said, damn, if I was a fighter, I'd never fight a guy like that. This guy is fast, and he throws a lot of punches. So, I mean, time came, and my first defense was with Ruben Castillo. So, it's a crazy sport. That's the way it was.
It's funny you bring up that name of everybody. I had Ruben Castillo. He was one of actually my first guests I've ever had. And I remember him we were talking about all the different experiences he's had. And of all people, he brought you up and he said, Mexican and Puerto Ricans have a big rivalry, but for some reason, I became real good friends with the guy I scrapped with. I had a good scrap with, which was Juan Laporte, and we became good friends afterwards. And
yeah, well, that's the way. This sport is not really about hating people or hating each other. It is about trying to be the best and get on with it. I mean, after the fight, we all shake our hand and everything. So, I mean, I don't have any grudges about any fighter that I fight. Everybody, is a good, cool friend, and we just, this is our sport. This is what we do. But Ruben Castillo is a nice guy, and they all are. And we made a good, relationship after the fight and before the fight because we met in different occasions. Same thing with Salvador Sanchez, the same thing. We have a rivalry. We fought, we beat each other up, and then we just become friends. And, that thing, it stays there.
And you had a nice amateur career, and then you went on to become a pro. At what point did you realize that it was time to turn pro?
Well, no, I mean, the thing was that I never thought about, this extension of the boxing game because I was doing it like for fun. And I didn't even think I was, going to be a world champion or anything like that. I mean, I just was fighting and I just wanted to win. And then all of a sudden, after I had two years of amateur fighting, I won, all the tournaments in the amateur fighting that I did. And then from there, I waited a little bit and I said, wait a minute, I was going to go to the Marines. And the same day that I was going to sign into the Marines, my trainer pulled up in the car and stopped and said, what are you doing? I said, Marines. He said, no. I got your contract. We're going to sign pro. And I said, we got to do this now because I need money. I need to work. So I wanted to go in the Marines. He said, no. I swear, I'm going to sign you pro. And that's the way. I was 17 and a half. And right at 18, I just, turned pro. Had my first fight in somewhere in Columbus, Ohio, somewhere.
Yeah, at the Garfield High School gym in Hamilton, Ohio. And what was it like that first time that you walked in through the drapes the first time for your first pro fight? Were you nervous? Were you scared going into that pro ring for the first time?
I always been confident in myself, and in that fight, the first pro fight, I wasn't scared. No, I was excited. I was excited that I was going to wear some little gloves. They were about like 6 ounces. And, just get it on. And I think my first fight, I won a KO. And then I won a decision. And then I won another KO. And it was, from there on. Oh, my fifth fight was in California. It was in the fight when Armando Muniz fought Carlos Farolino.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was on the undercard. And I fought a Jose Rodriguez.
Right.
And I beat him at I don't know, at 8th round, I think I beat him 6th. They gave him the fight, and that was my first loss. And I cut the guy from one side to another, and they still gave him the fight. But that, I was unknown, and I think he was a 10-round fighter, so they gave him the fight. But
a lot of your fights there, like let's say in your first 10 or 12 fights or so, you fought in Ohio, your first 2 or 3, and then the rest, a lot of them you fought in New York. But that one that you fought here in California, what was that like to be a Puerto Rican, fighter from New York and to come over here to the Olympic Auditorium, which is the Mexican crowd also back then? Was it different for you?
That was really my first experience being out, and you learn from these things, from the experience. And I felt good about it. You understand? I know. I mean, we all Latins. So, I mean, I didn't hate no Mexican. I don't hate anybody. So I just wanted to win. And, if it's a favorite, sometimes it's a little favoritism because he's there and he's from there. But, that's the way it goes. Either you knock somebody out or you beat them good.
How did they treat you, though?
They treat me fine. Yeah.
And down the line, you rack up a bunch of wins there. Then you fight, a big guy by the name of Salvador Sanchez. And I know a lot of people, I've always posted stuff on Salvador Sanchez on my Facebook, and I know you've seen it before. And, a lot of people are interested in that particular fight. What was this fight? What was it like to get the, news that you were going to be fighting a guy like Salvador Sanchez? Was he a big name at that time when you fought him? Was he something that you were aware of, that this was somebody different and special? Or what was that like?
I already knew of him because of what was going. I seen him fight before. I was going to fight Little Red Lopez before him, but I didn't have my tests all done for the WBC. So then Salvador got to fight him, and he won the title. And then I just waited for my chance. I was taking a fight at a time and see what was going on.
And we brought up Ruben Castillo, and I know when I had him on and we talked about his fight against Salvador Sanchez, he thought he won. I know a lot of people thought you won several rounds. Do you think you might have won that fight and they gave it to him? Or what do you think of that fight? What do you remember about that fight with Salvador Sanchez?
No. Salvador Sanchez won the fight. He was much more experienced than I was. I know that I tried hard and I did a lot of good things on that fight because I learned from it. But he had an edge on it. I can't say he didn't. Like I said, there's a lot of people don't see, but the way he cut me, it was with his elbow, and that gave him an advantage because the eye was bothering me. But even though fight is a fight, and that was it. And he won the decision. I thought I won more of the rounds than what they said. Yes, I did, because even the last round I thought I won. So, but the fight is a fight, and things happen, and I was satisfied with it. I wasn't never crying about it or anything like that. Hey, it happened. Let's just do it again.
Hey, what would you say was his biggest strength as far as athletic abilities? Would you say it was his how he just stayed active? He did stop throwing punches. I know Ruben Castillo said that it was his ability to recoup. He had like unbelievable recouping ability.
Exactly.
Would you agree with that?
Anybody will tell you that Salvador Sanchez had lungs of I don't know, I think a fish or something, but because this guy had huge lungs, and he used to recuperate real fast, which is all in his training, the way that the doctors taught him, and he used to relax and recuperate in 30 seconds, between rounds. So that he had an edge on that, and he was a very slick fighter. He was fast with his hands. He wasn't a big power puncher, but he was an active puncher.
What was his personality like towards you, like during the press conferences before the fight, or during the fight, or after the fight, your fight with him? What was he a gentleman? Was he, what was he like personality-wise?
But Salvador Sanchez was always a gentleman. Even in and out of the ring, he was a gentleman. And he said, "You're going to be world champion because you're a tough guy, and you're going to be a world champion." That after the fight, because he said if it would have went either way, he would have been satisfied because he thought that was such a good fight.
A few fights up, you fight a future world champion named Rocky Lockridge. You knocked him out in the second round, which, looking back at it, it's unbelievable that someone like that. He was a great competitor. He did great against guys like Julio, Cesar, Chavez down the line. But you fought him for the USBA featherweight title. What was that fight like?
Well, that fight was exciting because Lockridge was a big talker, and I used to like to fight guys that are big talkers, and I was really pumped up for that fight. And I wanted to shut him up, and which thank God I did. And it was a very exciting fight for me. It was one of my biggest steps after fighting Salvador Sanchez.
You fought everybody at your time. A few fights up from him, you fight a guy by the name of Eusebio Pedrosa, who was another huge fighter, one of the biggest, in my opinion, a big underrated fighter that a lot of people don't talk about. You fought him for the WBA World Featherweight title as well. You lost by decision on that fight. I mean, what was fighting another guy like him? What was it like fighting him?
But that fight was disgusting. That fight, I won that fight. Any way you put it, I would have won that fight. They cheated me out of that fight. The whole thing was set up. The WBA and the president, which was Rodrigo Sanchez from Panama, had this thing already set up. The referee was the guy. He was bored before the fight. So this guy gave me 59 fouls in one fight. He got more than 3 warnings on this fight, and he still got the fight. I had this guy knocked out in the second round. They bring him back to life by giving him the smelling sauce, and which is illegal in New Jersey, and they did a lot of illegal stuff. So
he was penalized twice during the fight as well.
Yes, and they still gave it to him. So that was if I consider myself 2-time world champion.
And I agree with that. And down the line, WBC Suleiman, after a bit, he said, "You know what? I think this guy, because of that particular fight where everybody knew that you should have won." They gave you that rematch, or they gave you hoping that you would have that rematch with Salvador Sanchez, which of course didn't happen. You said something interesting to me on a comment one time when we're talking on Facebook, and I asked you about Salvador Sanchez that rematch, And you said that the fight was signed, the rematch was signed the day that of his accident. How did that happen? What happened there?
Don King used to, handle Salvador Sanchez and with Jose Suleiman and stuff, but they waited, to the right time, for that fight, to sign the fight. I wasn't in good condition, so they found out in the gym that I wasn't in good condition. They called me and they said, "Do you want to fight Salvador Sanchez for the rematch?" I said, "Yeah." I didn't say nothing. I just say yeah. And as soon as they came with the contract on that day, I signed the contract. In the morning, this happened to him. This tragedy happened, I felt it bad, I was crying like hell because this guy is a good human being, and I had something to prove to the world, and I didn't get a chance to do it.
And, along with that emotion, what do you think would have happened, in your opinion? What do you think would have happened if it did go on? You think you had enough to study of him, that first time you fought him, to be able to maybe have some, good stuff for him in this rematch?
Definitely. I saw a lot of stuff that I did in that fight that I could have done much better. I was training, in that way. And they were skeptical about that fight too, because they even told me themselves, the contract, if he would have lost to me, I would have immediately to fight him right again. Next fight would have been with him again.
It was an immediate rematch clause.
Right.
Imagine that. I mean, something like that, him coming off of a win against another Puerto Rican like Wilfredo Gomez, and if he would have won that one, you would have been like the Felix Trinidad, in a way of that time.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, definitely. There's a lot of fights that it would have been my turnover. That would have been like the turnover fights. And every time I fought those fights, I got gypped, which was, when I fought Pedroza, when I fought McGuigan, when I fought Chavez, especially Chavez, and Osuma Nelson, because these guys I beat hands down. I mean, I know I beat them. And people that really get into the fight and see the fight the way it should be scored, they could see it, the difference. But shit, I wasn't signed with Don King, so I ain't getting none for free.
And a few fights up from Pedrosa, you fight Miranda for the vacant WBC featherweight title. You beat him by knockout in the 10th round. Then you fight Ruben Castillo, as we discussed. Then a few fights up, man, you fight a legend from your country, Puerto Rico. You fight Wilfredo Gomez, and in Puerto Rico. How were you accepted against a legend like Wilfredo Gomez? That would have been like fighting, the main guy. And that would have been like De La Hoya fighting Chavez, I think, at that time. What was that like, man?
And in that fight, that you have Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico. You got guys from New York and whatever. But I mean, he was really the favorite over there. But that was the most disgusting fight I ever had in my life.
Wow, of everybody, I want to hear this one. Why is that?
Well, that was the worst fight I ever fought. That fight, I trained so hard for that fight because there's one guy I didn't like at that time. It was Wilfredo Gomez, and I wanted to beat the crap out of him. So I was training hard every day. So I overdid it. So I overtrained for the fight. And when I was fighting him, I couldn't do nothing at all. This guy, I used to touch him with any of my hands, and his eyes used to roll. He's the only guy that I went in the ring that when you hit him, he go, stuff like that. I'm saying, wow, look at it. And he's hitting me with everything. Boom, bam, boom, bam. And I couldn't hit him. It was so horrible.
Where did the animosity come from that you had against Gomez or he had against you or whatever? Well, where did that come from? I mean, did it have to do just because you guys were from the same place? You guys wanted to be the best from Puerto Rico? I mean, where did that come from?
No, not really. Gomez was a smart ass. He was a smart ass. He wasn't likable with a lot of people over there. He used to go around thinking he was the king of the world. People asked him for autographs, the kids and stuff. He used to turn them down. I didn't like this dude as a person like that. And that's why I was really training hard and I wanted to break his face.
And how did the people of Puerto Rico receive that? Did they see you as a bad guy because you did want to break his face and he was the king of Puerto Rico at that time?
Nobody knew my feelings, you understand? I mean, I'm telling you because we're doing an interview, and this is what I felt at the time. I wasn't going around telling everybody I hated Wilfredo Gomez. No, this is my feeling from inside of him as a person, the way he was.
If you were to run into Wilfredo Gomez now, are feelings changed because of, you guys have changed as far as whatever, or?
Definitely. That was then, that was then. It happened. We just got to live our life. We just go on. Right now, wherever we could sit and eat and have fun. I mean, I even play him in pool. He thought he was going to beat me in pool, and I whipped his ass in pool. I said, "Nah, let you win me."
A few fights up from him, man. Another great guy, Barry McGuigan. I mean, you're just fighting these guys left and right, some of the best ever. I mean, what was that fight like with him? Fighting him in Belfast, Ireland. I mean, what was that like, man?
Well, Ireland is way out of my place, and I was feeling okay because I mean, anywhere I stand, the only ones in the ring is me and him. So it could be in any country. The only two guys fighting is going to be me and him. I ain't going to fight the whole country. So, I mean, they could say whatever and they could scream at him, for him and all that. They could boo me, but that wasn't it. I wanted to prove something that day, and I did it wrong. I was proving that he couldn't hurt me, and I could hurt him whenever I wanted. And I took too long to do it. So when I started hitting him in the 10th round, which I said, let me try to finish him now. 7 seconds before the fight, when I had him hurt, they jumped in the ring. They rang the bell and jumped in the ring, and they saved him. And that was the end of the fight. And, over there's no decision. The only one there's the judge that raises his hand, which is Henry Gibbs, an Irishman.
And just looking through your record, I mean, excuse my language, but you really didn't give a shit who you fought and where you fought them. You knew you had a job, and you knew that the guy that was in front of you, you had to take out, and you did the best to do that.
Well, I mean, to prove to yourself who you are and what you want to do, you got to fight who's there and top of the line. And my manager was just scared of nobody. He wanted me to fight everybody. He didn't care.
And that's a difference from what it was like then to today. We'll talk about that in a bit. But a few fights from him, you fight Julio Cesar Chavez. Now you're fighting the king of Mexico, and one of the best fighters in the history of Mexico, Julio Cesar Chavez. Man, I mean, you take him on in New York. What was that like for you, man?
Well, that's another story that we have here. Julio Cesar Chavez, they called me in I think 21 or 15 days notice on this fight. And I went to North Carolina. I trained I trained as hard as I could to try to get ready. I mean, he was just like anybody else to me. If I fought Salvador Sanchez and this other guy, and Chavez was just another fighter for me. Okay, he's a little strong fighter and good combination, but I mean, we both men and we got two hands. That's the way I took it. You're going to hit me, I'm going to hit you back. And that's the way I took it to him.
And the judges, I mean, they had it pretty close. Two of the judges, one of them had you or had him by a point. Another one had him by a point also. So you were pretty damn close to actually maybe get a majority draw there at one point.
Oh, I mean, like I said, when you fighting a Don King fighter and you're not signed with Don King, you're not going to get it. I don't care who it is. And those days, that's the way it was. And I wasn't signed with Don King.
And I thought Adrian Arreola had also maybe bested Julio Cesar Chavez right before that fight too.
Yeah, well, that's things happen. I mean, you protect it. I mean, once you in that team, you protect it. I wasn't protected. I was in a no team. I was my own team.
And looking back at something like that, I mean, thinking about teams and all that stuff, I mean, were you kind of like, did they see you like as a stepping stone type person, a tough guy to throw these guys that they wanted to blow up to be superstars? Well, did they kind of consider you like that, or did you ever see something like that, or did you have that in your mind?
That started happening after, I mean, people saw that, I got these close decisions and they get away with it, so everybody wanted to fight. A guy like JUAN LAPORTE he's strong and everything, but the judges are going to look at the past, and that's the way they're going to think. So, I mean, that's what happened. The thing is, I had to knock these guys out to become a world champion. These guys are great fighters, and they just as strong as me and whatever. And it's not easy. You got to, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, these guys are strong. These guys can punch. And, I mean, you got to get lucky and knock one of these guys out to be a world champion. And at that time, the conditioning and all that stuff most of the time wasn't as good. And that's what happened, because that's what failed in that Chavez fight, that little extra, those 3 last rounds, which I think I did very good, because I thought I won 6 out of out of those rounds. 12 rounds, I won 6, because they gave him, they took a point off of him, okay? And one of the rounds was probably even. So, I mean, who won the fight?
That's absolutely true, man. And, down the line, you end up finding these other guys like, John Molina, who fought even our guy, Robert Garcia, who's now considered one of the best trainers in the world. He fought John Molina down the line, too. You ended up finding a Hall of Famer like Azuma Nelson, Costa Zhu, and all these fighters down the line. I mean, as it is, we talked about all these other fighters you fought. You fought all these guys. I mean, looking back, do you think of yourself and say to yourself, you know what, I deserve to be a freaking Hall of Famer one day? Do you look at it like that?
Well, I think I deserve to be in a Hall of Famer like 10 years ago. But, you just got to wait. I mean, you just got to wait it out. If it happens, it happens. I mean, what we're going to do? I mean, it's on them. If they choose you, they choose you. But the guys that I fought, they're all Hall of Famers.
Absolutely. And being a Mexican-American fight fan, I know a lot of people are probably going to want to hear your answer to this question. Being a Mexican-American from Southern California, who do you think, fighting, 2 great fighters like Salvador Sanchez and Julio Cesar Chavez, by your fights with the both of them, who do you think would have won that particular fight if they would have fought?
I got that. A lot of Mexican people, a lot of people ask me that question, but no doubt in my mind that Salvador Sanchez would have walked by Chavez. Because Chavez, you see, if you look at the fight, when I was pushing Chavez with double jabs and pushing him back, he wasn't the same. Now, you have a guy like Salvador Sanchez with a great jab that he has, good stamina, quickness. I mean, he would have played. I think he would have played with Julio Cesar Chavez, really.
And it's funny because I asked your buddy that we talked about, Ruben Castillo, that question. And of course, he has a little animosity against Salvador Sanchez because he thought he beat him. But I asked him the same question. He said the opposite. He said Chavez would have knocked him out, in that fight. And of course, Ruben Garcia, on top of those two, he also fought Alexis Arguello, all 3 in their primes.
Well, I mean, everybody will feel this, and not everybody's going to feel the same. Because we all 2 different people and got different opinions. But I fought both of them, and so did he. But what happened when he fought Chavez? But the better fighter, you could see close. If you could close your eyes and you could hear about it. Salvador Sanchez was a much better defensive fighter than Julio Cesar Chavez.
Absolutely, and Ruben, I think, did fight him like in the mid-'80s, 85, 86, more or less. And when he fought, Salvador Sanchez, it was more when Ruben was in his prime also. So,
Chavez got better at the end.
Yeah.
At the end, he got a little better because he had more, better opponents, strong. He was a little stronger. But if you're talking about a 130-pounder, I mean, hands down, Salvador Sanchez would have played with.
Salvador Sanchez, although he had active hands and he would throw his hands a lot, he had great defense because he would move his head so much.
Yeah, he'll punches. He'll go with the punches, and it wasn't easy to knock Salvador Sanchez out. I mean, this guy, I hit him with an uppercut and lift him up from the floor. I hit him with a left hook and woke him up. This guy was incredible.
We see all these fighters nowadays that they're fighting past their times where they should be retiring. I mean, we see guys like Bernard Hopkins. I mean, he might be an oddity because he's still doing great, but guys like Roy Jones Jr. and Manny Pacquiao, these guys that are like already. At what point do you think was your time to retire? I mean, when did you realize, hey, this is it for me?
Well, I got tired of going in the ring and just being robbed because I mean that happened to me so much.
You mean like the politics and all that?
Yeah, the politics of boxing. So I mean, if I would have kept fighting, they would have kept using me for a stepping stone or whatever. And I wasn't born for that. I was born to fight, be great, and that's it. Not for nobody to use me as much as they were using me. So I decided, hey, let me call it off. I'm 39 years old. What the heck, And
all these fighters that came either before you, during your time, and after you, all the guys like with Wilfredo Benitez and we talked about Gomez and all the guys before you, like Carlos Ortiz and you brought up Jose Torres and all the guys.
We're talking about great fighters now.
Yeah, great fighters. We're talking about the great fighters from Puerto Rico and all the guys after you. You know, also like Trinidad and Cotto and everybody after you, Ivan Calderon and everybody else. I mean, where do you place yourself? Do you place yourself up there with them? You know, or where do you place yourself along with that group?
Well, you know, with that group, if they were in Mao times, it would have been a whole different story.
Man, I have to bring up Edwin Rosario. He has to be brought up there.
Edwin Rosario he was a great fighter too, but a great fighter that was a great fighter going forward. You understand? So when he got hit, he pulled back. So that questioned somebody's heart right there. And I boxed him here in New York when he came one of the first times. I hit this guy to the body. He didn't want to get touched again. You know, so I mean, I don't know about a great fighter like that. I mean, if you get hit, you either fight your ass off or what. But he used to just run around. So when he was hitting, he was fine. But when he got hit, he punked out. You saw him when he fought Ramirez. He turned his back.
You're right. And he kind of, towards the last rounds when he saw that Chavez was hitting him back, he also kind of, he didn't know what to do there.
I told him Chavez was going to whip his ass. I told him, I did.
You did?
We was in the Puerto Rican parade, and he was talking a lot of shit. I told him Chavez is going to whip your ass, so you better be ready.
Because you fought some of these great Puerto Rican fighters, and, you know, did you get a lot of, like, you know, people coming at you sideways also?
No, not really. I mean, I to tell you the truth, I'm well respected here in New York, here and anywhere I go. In Puerto Rico, you know, I'm well respected, and you know, I just lived out of my life. You know, whatever happened in the past is a good memory. I enjoyed it. I loved what I did, and just move on.
What did you think of Hector Camacho?
He's a great fighter. He was greater than anything, but he just didn't know how to appreciate that. He just blew it up, you know, by doing the wrong things and being laughed at, and that was his thing. That's the way he lived. He wanted to make people laugh. He wanted to do crazy things, and that was Hector Camacho.
I had a son on here. He was one of my first guests as well, and he told me a lot of little stories. On the first day that video came out of, what was it called, Ring of Fire, about Emile Griffith. You know, I saw you actually. That was one of the last times I saw you on video. Was in that video. You got interviewed, and you know we saw a bit of you there. You know, what did you think of Emile Griffith, and how did what was your relationship with him? I know he just passed recently, so you know I just want to get a little bit input on that.
Well, Emile Griffith was a family member too. He was like a family member to me. When I was 15 years old, I'm telling you, I went to the gym and I used to see him train and all that stuff. I mean, he was a legend. He was always a legend. And when he started training me, I mean, we respect him a lot, and he was a tough fucking trainer. He worked the shit out of you, and he didn't take no shit, you understand? He used to smack me around in the fucking ring. How many times he didn't smack me in the corner and say, you know, fucking Tony, do your shit, you know, move your hands, you know, and stuff like that. He was a, you know, a well-liked guy, you know. A lot of people talk a lot of shit. Yes, he has his feminine side, which anybody could be, you know, like that. And, hey, if you go to sleep with that man, then you could tell me he's a faggot.
Hey, you know what? It wasn't until that video where I knew about that. You know, I really didn't know about that. You know, I knew about Emile Griffith for years and reading about him and all that and watching some of his fights. But, I mean, I didn't know about that. Did you see that stuff openly while you knew him and while you were training with him?
Well, no. When I was training with Emile, was like a kid. Emile loved to play with kids and all that stuff. He was like a kid. Never disrespect none of the kids that I've seen him around with or anything like that. And nobody ever told me about Emile did this, did that, did this to anybody. So, you know what I mean? So people just talk. Okay, he liked to hang out with people like that. Those were his friends at his time. We don't know what happened in his childhood because I don't know. You understand? So if whatever he did, there's nobody out there that could say that he did it. So, I mean, if you bring me somebody over here and says, I was sleeping with Emile Griffith, I used to do Emile Griffith, or Emile Griffith, then I say, okay, you was there, if you was there. But, like, I was mad about this book and about all that stuff that they did about him and say that he is. I say, they just talking shit because you really don't know. If you get me a person over here that could prove it that he was gay, then I said he's a gay man. But he was just a happy guy. And that was it. And I was so upset about all these shit that they've been writing in the books and all this stuff because it wasn't even like that.
It's sad because they forget about how big of a legend he was in boxing and everything he did for the sport, and all of a sudden they just wanted to bring up the gossip and the rumors and all that bullshit.
That's just people talking and they want to sell. They want to sell books and they want to sell stories, and that was it.
And again, they forgot about everything he's done for the sport. I mean, you have to remember that he was one of the best fighters from the Gillette era. Back when that was big, back in the 50s.
And we're talking about fighting days. Those are fighting days because they used to fight every other week.
And for nothing also.
For nothing.
And what's your relationship with his son, Luis?
Louis, I see him once in a while. I go to the cemetery more than what I see Louis now, because the cemetery is right here in Queens, and I go anytime I want.
You brought up the cemetery. What was I remember you telling me that you were that you went to Salvador Sanchez's a funeral, going to Mexico to a funeral like that to a guy that you had fought. What was it like for you? What was that experience like?
Oh, that it's heartbreaking. That you have to go and do these things, but go and you remember all the past and all that stuff. You feel the family, you feel the hurt of them missing this great fighter. It's hard, but I had a promise of when as soon as I finished that fight, I was going to fly over there, and that's the first thing I did.
And I remember seeing you on that special with I believe it was a day or a few days after his funeral, and it was with Howard Cosell, and they interviewed you on there, and you said that they used to call him El Chavo. What was that like? Your first meeting with him? What was it like? Salvador Sanchez. I'm sorry.
No, it was good. I mean, whenever we met anywhere or whatever, it was Juanito, como está, and stuff like that, and it's no bad animosity of whatsoever.
Emile Griffith, when you found out that he passed, when you got the news, what did you feel at that time?
I was in my house and they call me surprisingly like that and tell me, I just broke down. I mean, this is a guy that's been around, for a long time in my life and such a good person. I mean, even though that I know that it was a better thing for him to rest in peace than being in that bed, tough man like that he was and all this greatness and everything, and couldn't even talk. He couldn't even, he just be in the bed like a vegetable. So, it hurt me a lot, but I'm also more relieved that I know that he's sleeping in peace.
There's a movie coming up called El Boxeo that's going to screen in Harlem for the Puerto Rican festival over there. That's going to be done in Harlem. I heard you're going to go see this. Are you ready to go check that out?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I met the director. I had him on for an interview. We saw the screening here on the West Coast, and it was a great movie. I know they brought you up and they talked, well about you. What do you think of Latino boxing? Where do you think it has come from when you first started to where it's at now? How far do you think Latinos have come in boxing history?
Well, the Latinos, I think they're the greatest fighters at all times. Is the Latinos. I don't know. I just think that boxing, it was probably from Rome or from wherever, Greece, wherever it came from. But let me tell you, I enjoy boxing. I enjoy fighting, and a lot of the people that were around me in Latins that I know, Roberto Duran, we love to fight, and that was it. I mean, I think we the Latin fighters are the greatest right now.
The most excited at that time. Would you rate yourself, if I asked you your honest opinion, would you be able to say you rate yourself as one of the top 5 best Puerto Rican fighters of all time?
Well, I could tell you I'm the 13th. I'm the 13th.
Maybe to the Ring magazine, but to yourself in your mind, how do you place yourself?
Well, I mean, there's different categories on the fighters, and to me, I say me, I'm one of the best because of what I've done and who I fought, and nobody put me down. You understand?
It's rare to think, like right now I'm thinking of all the great fighters, like the guys before you, during you, and after you, and it's hard to go down like the list of all these fighters that we talked about, and to say that they fought this many guys, these many Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers, and it's kind of rare. And to me, I've always seen you as one of the best of all the Mexican fighters that you ever fought or that ever bring you up. I've always heard that you've always been likable, unlike some of the guys from the past, because of our Mexican Puerto Rican rivalry. They always bring up as Juan Laporte as one of us, or one of the good guys for whatever reason. It seemed like all these guys like you, like we talked about Ruben Castillo, that really had a big liking to you, just like Julio Cesar Chavez has brought you up in a very positive way, man. And I congratulate you. And I've always seen you as one of the best Puerto Rican fighters ever.
It's a great history that we came across when we started meeting, and doing this relationship. Little Hands of Stone, that's my favorite man right there. He used to call me all the time. He don't have my number anymore, but he used to call me all the time.
Are you talking about Michael Carball?
Yeah, Michael. He used to call me all the time. He went through his things and crying on the phone. I talked to him. I'm felt like a big brother to him and stuff like that. And Ruben Castillo, I admire him for what he's done, really, and he was a great fighter. And he just didn't have that chance, that opportunity to turn over, and that's what happens. But, we all did our things, we live our life, and we'll pass it on to the next generation, and that's about all I can say,
And from here on, what do you do in boxing? What do you do in the sport? I know you brought up some stuff to me, but to let everybody know, how are you still involved in boxing?
Well, right now, the thing was that I was working for the city of New York for the Housing Authority, and I've been with them for 19 years. So that, it's the time when they're going to let me, go this year. And I'm saying, well, I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to start training fighters. So right now I'm going to the gym and starting little by little. I have a Chinese national team is in New York, and I'm helping them out and the coaches, and we're having a good time.
And looking back at everything, once it's all said and done, Juan, you're going to be here for another 100 more years, man. But looking back at everything, once it's all said and done, man, how do you want everybody to remember Juan Laporte? What do you want people? How do you want people to remember you once it's all said and done, man?
Well, I just want people to remember me as how I was. Juan Laporte was a fun guy, respectable guy, and that's it. He, enjoyed being around kids and making their life better. And now that's it, man. I got my kids, I got my grandkids, and all I want to do is just live and watch them come up. And hopefully one day I have one of them become a champion,
And be the great mentor that you can only be, man, knowing all this, having all this great education in the sport, going through all these great, lessons in life. And only someone like Juan Laporte can do something like that, man. Juan, thank you very much for coming out to theboxingbar.com, man. And hopefully down the line we could have you back on so you could give us some, maybe notes on what you think of boxing at the moment.
Well, boxing is good, but like anything else, there's a lot of different things coming around, a lot of different pills going around, and it don't make you that great of a fighter once you're doing something that you're not supposed to. And that's the things that get me, so much money in the business now, and they do so many dirt, you know.
Yeah, and with those pills, they won't make them go the 15 rounds that you guys used to go.
Right, and they only do 12 rounds, and they get much more money than we do.
Well, the sad thing is, like I was talking to somebody the other day, I go, the sad thing is, 9 or 10 rounds, they look like they're ready to pass out, and yet they have all these, drugs in them, and they're all powerful, and they have all these muscles, but they can barely go 9 or 10 rounds, unlike you guys.
Well, you could imagine, can you imagine us at that time taking steroids and getting in the ring like that? We would have been killers.
What do you think? What do you think of the same day weigh-ins to the next day weigh-ins? Do you think there's a big difference there, or do you think it's the same thing?
I think that's the dumbest thing they ever did. I mean, because the advantage is for the bigger guy anyway. If you're a natural featherweight and you're gonna fight a guy 140, that guy is gonna be 160, and you're gonna be 143. You understand?
Who are some of your favorite fighters right now?
My favorite fighters right now? Yeah. To tell you the truth, I don't have a favorite fighter right now.
What the heck's going on over here, Juan?
Not right now. My favorite fighters was Muhammad Ali, in the heavyweight divisions, Sugar Ray, in the welterweight divisions, a Marvin Hagler, but you're talking about Maravilla and stuff like that. That shit, that's bullshit. I think to me,
let me throw a few names.
Trying to choose.
Let me throw a list of names. Let me throw a little list of names at you, and you tell me what you think of each of them. Wilfredo Gomez.
Wilfredo Gomez, but Wilfredo Gomez was my time. Wilfredo was a great fighter.
What do you think of Wilfred Benitez?
Benitez, definitely by far one of the greatest welterweights of all time.
How about Edwin Rosario?
Rosario was, I'd say half-half. He was a good fighter, and sometimes a bad fighter because what he did. You understand?
Carlos Ortiz?
Great fighter.
Felix Trinidad.
And his time, great fighter. He couldn't shine the shoes of Wilfredo Gomez. I mean, not even Wilfredo Gomez.
See, I was working my way to that one. That's the one I wanted to throw you first, but I wanted to work my way.
He wouldn't have touched him.
Really?
You know that.
I'm not going to say nothing here. I'm asking for your opinions. What about someone like Miguel Cotto? Would he have? What if I would have threw Miguel Cotto at you? During your time.
Miguel Cotto. Okay, I got some. I got some for Miguel Cotto.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
How about Carlos Ortiz and Miguel Cotto?
Oh man. Well, Carlos Ortiz was a lightweight. Miguel Cotto's he's 154 now, but he was better at 140, 147.
Miguel Cotto is all the way to 154 pounds, right?
Yeah. Right now he's 154. Yeah.
So Carlos Ortiz is 135 pounder.
So 135. Yeah, lightweight.
Yeah. And then he went to 140. But But
I think if you would take Wilfred Benitez, that was 147, a welterweight. I think if you would have got him against Cotto at his welterweight, I think Wilfred Benitez would have just took his head off.
Wilfred Benitez will go in the ring right now, and Cotto won't touch him.
Yeah, he was a radar, man. He couldn't touch that guy.
Yeah. He weighs like 250 pounds.
How about Ivan Calderon against someone like Manito de Piedra, like we talked about, Michael Carbajal, who would have won that at 108?
Well, no, I think Carbajal would have won that. Even though, this kid was a great fighter, good mover, he could fucking move.
And tomorrow, today's Friday night, it's Friday night tonight, but tomorrow, it's going to be another Puerto Rican against a Mexican American. Our guy Oxnard, Mikey Garcia, is going to fight Rocky Martinez from Puerto Rico. What's your prediction on that fight?
Well, Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia has been there, done that.
Well, Mikey Garcia is coming up in weight. He's going up to 130 from 126. You think he'll be able to do it?
Mikey Garcia, he's a tough kid. He's not gonna go down for nobody, and I don't know. This kid from Puerto Rico, I don't even know him that well. I don't know what type of really fighter he is. I mean, he's gonna have to prove him. He's gonna have to prove it to me tomorrow. If he beats Mikey Garcia, then I'll say, okay, he's a good fighter. But I don't think that's gonna happen though.
Do you think there will be more or less great Puerto Rican fighters at the rate we're going right now?
There's gonna be more great fighters coming out of Puerto Rico. It's gonna take some time, but eventually they'll come up again. Because Puerto Rico is a small place, and
yes,
a lot of kids that are coming up that are destined to become great fighters.
Do you have any in your camp?
Excuse me?
Do you have any in your camp coming up? Any great?
No, well, right now I don't have anything right now. I'm waiting for my son. Let's see what happens.
So, like your son, knowing that everything that you went through in boxing, and are you, like, is it easy for you to let your son go into a sport like that?
Well, yeah. Well, I have, my oldest son was fighting. He quit, and he got a baby and all of that.
Yeah.
So I have my 15-year-old that was asking me to fight since he was little. I told him, no. You're going to go to school. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And, well, for the last month, I have been having him in the gym, and he's been doing great. He likes what he's doing. He's a big kid. He's about 5'6", 5'7" already. And
oh, shit, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's going to grow. He's 11 and a half in shoes already. And he likes it. So he's going to give it a try.
Is he pretty, well balanced and everything, like when he stands up or hits and all that?
He's only 15 years old. He's still, in mind baby,
Yeah.
Kid is grown up, in Queens and playing video games.
Let me ask you something. Do you know that guy? God, I'm drawing a blank here. The guy that fought, that guy Billy Collins, Resto. Is he still around New York? Is he still over there?
Yeah. I see him once in a while.
Oh, okay.
Whenever I get his information, I'm gonna put it on Facebook for you. Okay?
Yeah. Do that, and if you don't mind, give me his number. I would love to talk to him, and not to bash him or anything like that. I'm not like that. I talk to you straight. It's not about bashing him. It's about talking to him and just letting us know his thoughts, man. That's it.
Yeah, no, I definitely will let him know. I'll let him. I'll get his number. And I'll put it on Facebook for you, okay?
All right, cool, man. Let me go ahead and close out here. Mr. Juan Laporte, thank you very much for coming on to theboxingbar.com. It was a privilege and an honor to finally have you on, and thank you very much, my friend.
Well, thank you, guys. All right, enjoy.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Juan. Thank you. Talk to you later, man.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.